Hi, Adam Sweet here. Today I'm going to talk about scales. And before I start with a typical scale, I want to explain briefly how scales work on the violin and what you use them for. Um, Scales are a series of notes separated by gaps or spaces called intervals. And the the all of the scales follow the same pattern of gaps or spaces or intervals. Um, and so when you practice scales, all you need to learn is what is the first note you're going to play, and then you follow the sequence of intervals. So the sequence of intervals is the following. The first note in a scale is called the root note, and that will be whatever the key is that you're going to be playing in, and I'll explain what I mean later. So, for example, if you're going to start with G, the first note is going to be G, then you go up the alphabet from there. Now, there's no H in music, so once you get to G, then you have to start over again at the top of the alphabet. So the notes are going to be G, A, B, C, and so on, right? Okay, so the intervals between the notes are root, then there's a whole step. Now, a whole step on the violin is about 2 fingers, 2 finger widths. On the mandolin, it's 2 frets. On the piano, it's 2 keys. So that's a whole step. All right, so we have root, whole, then we have a half step. Now on the violin, a half step is about 1 finger width. On the mandolin, it's 1 fret, and on the piano, it's 1 key. So let me start again. Root, whole, that's 2 fingers, whole, 2 fingers, half, whole, 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 half. That's the intervals. So all scales, whether you start on G, D, A, E, B, F sharp, C sharp, or C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, and C flat, right? Those are all the scales. So let's do one. So the first one we're going to do is G. Now, why did I pick G? It wasn't arbitrary. I picked G because the first note or the first string on your instrument is G. By the way, I've done videos about this before, but I'll say it here and I'll say it a lot more as we go along. G is the first string, and G, the key of G has 1 sharp, and I'll explain what I mean by that later. If you go up 5 notes from G, G, A, B, C, D is the second string on the violin, and it has 2 sharps. If we go up 5 notes from D, D, E, F, G, A, A is the third note on the violin, and A major has 3 sharps. If you go up 5 notes from A, you get E, and E has 4 sharps, and so on. So this is a really great way to remember, how many sharps or flats there are in a key as they relate to your instrument. It's a shortcut that I learned when I was a kid. Okay, so let's start with G major. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with open G. So root is G. And then whole, so I'm going to put my first finger down about 1 inch or so from the nut. And the distance between the nut and your finger is going to be different based on the size of your instrument and the size of your finger. But it's about 1 inch. So that's going to be the second note, A. And I recommend that beginners have a tuner app on their phone as they're learning how to play the notes of the scale. That way you can check and make sure you're playing the right note, the note that you want. All right, so we have root, whole, or A, another whole, or B. As you can see, there's about a 2 finger gap between the A and the B. Now we need a half step, so that third finger is going to be right next to my second finger, C. Now we need a whole step, so we're going to use our fourth finger on the G string for a D. Now we need a whole step, so first finger on the D string, about an inch from the nut, is E. See that? Another whole step, so F sharp is going to be second finger about an inch or 2 finger widths from the E. And finally G, which is a half step from the F sharp. So right next to the second finger. So let me do that again without all the talking. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. Now when I teach my students how to play scales, I always recommend that you play 2 octaves. Now an octave just means 8 notes. So what you're going to do is you're going to play from the first note, the root note, up 8 notes to the first octave. Then you're going to start there again and play the second octave. So the last note of the first half of the scale is going to be the first note or the root note of the second part of the scale. So if the last note of the first part of the G major scale is G, then you're just going to keep going up 8 more notes to the second G out of, I think there's 3 Gs on the violin. So so G, and fourth finger A, or root, whole, B, first finger on the A string about an inch from the nut is a whole step. Now we need a half step, second finger right next to the first finger on the A string. Whole step, third finger about an inch from the second finger on the A string. Whole step, fourth finger about an inch from the third finger for an E. F sharp, first finger on the E string about an inch from the nut. You see that? And finally half step, second finger right next to the first finger on the E string is a G. So again, without all the talking, 3 on the D string is a G, 4 is an A, 1 on the A string is a B, 2 right next to the B is a C, 3 is a D, 4 is an E, 1 is an F sharp, 1 on the E string, and 2 right next to it is a G. So the whole scale from the beginning, I'll just say the intervals. Root, whole, half, whole, whole, half. Now that becomes a root again. Root, whole, half, whole, half. Okay, so that's the G major scale. Now a couple little pointers. First is, once you put a finger down, always leave it down until you move to the next string. Okay, second is, always lead with your first finger. So, for example, if you're playing fourth finger on the D string for an A, then lead with your first finger, meaning leave all your other fingers down on the D string and take your first finger and move it over to the A string. Now Now you can lift all your other fingers up and get ready to play them on the A string. Okay, why do we do that? Because we always want to have an anchor point that anchors us to whatever position we're in on the violin. There are technically five positions on the violin. This position here at the bottom is called first position, third, fourth, and fifth. So I'm not going to show you how to do those right now, but we'll get into them eventually. All right, so I hope this was helpful to you. If you need to ask me any questions, I'm online all the time. You can post a question on my website, and all the links to find me are below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe, and if you want more of this kind of video, I'd be happy to make more of it for you. I'll just look for your subscription. And thank you very much for watching the video. I hope you have a great day.